I think we get a lot of great talent in law firms and they can go hard. The guy I first started working with in Leeds, he was a partner at 3.5 years. Traditionally, law firms accelerated talent. For economic reasons, they decelerate talent now to create leverage. I think that's a bad deal for talent. It's a great deal for partners in established institutional businesses, but not a great deal if you're straight out of a top university carrying 50,000 of student debt because you didn't have a banker, mum and dad to pay you through. So I kind of think we look for talent who can thrive in our environment. So we reimagine the talent experience.
Today, I'm joined by Ian Bagshaw, who is a private equity partner at both Linklaters and then White & Case, and he helped to build out those private equity practices in London. Ian is now the managing partner of Perkins Coie's London office. We have a really interesting conversation about how he plans to scale Perkins Coie in London, what it means to sit at the intersection of both technology and private equity, and his vision for the future, including the use of AI. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Ian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So I want to start going into a bit more about your private equity background before we move over to Perkins Coie. We have many aspiring private equity lawyers that use our platform, and I'd love to just hear from you. How would you explain private equity to someone new to the industry, and how does that differ to, say, venture capital?
I think private equity is one of the most interesting areas of corporate law for building a career, because you work with very entrepreneurial people. You work in fast-paced environments, both on deals and also in between deals, supporting businesses to grow, because the concept is, you buy at one level and a private equity house wants to see 3 times their equity investment within 5 to 7 years so they can sell at another level. So it's very dynamic, very transactional, very entrepreneurial. And you tend to, depending on the type of clients you're working for, you tend to be at the cutting edge of various industries, because those are the ones that are the dynamic businesses attracting investment and growing. Intuitively, private equity uses leverage as much as equity because it enhances equity returns if you can create borrowing in a company and therefore pay a purchase price in part with debt, in part with equity. So there tends to be real cash flow driving the leverage or supporting the leverage, because banks often lend on a multiple of cash flow. So you need to have the cash flow. So these tend to be stable businesses, mature, with the ability to scale and grow. So I think it's dynamic, as I said, a great opportunity, and will be around for the foreseeable future as one of the most innovative client bases within big law. In terms of venture capital is different, but has a lot of the same features. Venture capitalists invest to make a return. Their returns are often strategically targeted to be much higher on a successful bet because they invest a lot earlier. They tend not to take control, private equity does. They tend to back founders with capital and some support, but leave the founder to run the business, kind of report back. They tend not to have leverage because the businesses often don't have free cash flow to generate leverage. And often these businesses require capital to keep them alive whilst they build a sustainable business. So they're not even cash flow break even in the majority of cases, depending on the early stage. But ultimately, when they're successful, they converge with, kind of the private equity world. And in certain industries, you'll see private equity buying a lot of VC-backed companies that have become successful and can support a private equity model. In other worlds, you see a lot of VC-backed companies becoming successful and never taking private equity money, where founders never cede control. And some of those are some of the biggest companies in the world. When you look at the Magnificent Seven in the Fortune 500, none of those came through private equity ownership, and really founder-led businesses that grew on cash flow and investment in a typical VC or equity-funded way. Now, interestingly, for people who want to look to work with the companies of tomorrow, the reality is it's a good choice, private equity and VC. These things are not mutually exclusive either, because if you focus on complex shareholder arrangements and equity funding, you could do both. And I think for savvy kids coming into the industry, being able to do both will be the real differentiator, because in 10 to 15 years' time, widget businesses that generate free cash flow and supported by leverage and private equity will be very successful. But intuitively, in Europe especially, businesses that are driven by data and created through an idea as an engine, as opposed to necessarily a product, in order to get to a product and a service and who monetize that data, they'll also be very dynamic and very innovative. And they may well be in parallel worlds where the only common connection is, complex equity, complex strategic advice. So my advice would be try not to choose, try and do both, because there's some crossover. Both are very entrepreneurial. VC work is very founder-led. Private equity has some founder-led initiatives, but tend to have professional management teams who are in for 5 to 7 years to create the value that private equity needs for an exit. But either way, both entrepreneurial, both generally at the cutting edge of what they're doing. Founders in VC require slightly more advisory. CEOs in private equity require slightly more transactional work. But if you can see the differences, then you can reconcile them. And the skill sets required from legal talent are broadly the same: a high level of client service, a deep understanding of the market, and a willingness to deliver advice on a operational basis, meaning the advice is instantly translatable to the people you're giving it to because they're in a hurry and they don't want academic kind of option advice. They want operational advice that frames decisions. So to become a trusted advisor to a founder in a VC-backed business or a CEO in a private equity-backed business, it's broadly the same test. Can you provide operational advice? To do that, you need to understand the market, you need to have the right response criteria, and ultimately the level of confidence in order to provide yes, no answers rather than mini thesis.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking about the skill set, so I was asking the team beforehand what to ask you now that we have you on the podcast. And the main kind of question that came up is, you're not just any private equity partner, you are, Ian Bagshaw, who has a big name in the private equity space. And I'd love to know what goes into building up like the clients that you had, the practice that you had to become such a renowned private equity lawyer, especially for many people that are starting their private equity careers and want to become as successful as you became.
Look, it's no big things. It's lots of small steps, and depend on the level you're at. But look, my old view of professional services, but especially in law, is the client experience is all. If you never let a client down, they'll always come back. And letting them down is simply over-promising and under-delivering. It's no more simple or complex than that. But when you work backwards from the different stages you're at in terms of what you're doing to deliver, kind of more than people expect, deliver a better approach than they were getting from somewhere else, so you're differentiated. It's about building the blocks within yourself to deliver that advice. So it's understanding the market, understanding the dynamics, getting the response speed correct, getting the level of answer correct, and building human relationships. And if you can do that and you can look at that as the stepping stones to building a successful client experience, you will be successful. And then other things come into play as you get more older and more mature, which dictate how successful you want to be. Like, how can you scale a practice? To scale it, you need to teach people how to do your job so you can keep growing into time where you can do more of the important things to generate work, like origination. So essentially it starts off all about you, and then it grows to all about the team that you're leading, depending on the period in your career you're at. And there's different skills at different stages, but the best private equity lawyers are collaborative, highly team focused, because the success depends on the quality of the team, and invariably at the right firm for that client base, so that the wider institution understands the dynamics of those clients. So you've got the right team in the right place with the right leadership at the end game. But getting there, there's lots of unconventional stories, but when you unwind them, they're very conventional. They all have the same building blocks, the same desire to succeed, and they were able to put those blocks together to get to the later stages where they then had to change what they did to scale. So, it's a journey, but it's all the simple things. Law firms are really simple businesses. Happy clients, happy people. winning culture and success. So if you can create happy clients and happy people, your team and your clients, then you're going to be successful. And if you work backwards from there and don't overcomplicate it, then ultimately you'll be able to see it quite clearly. Law firms tend to overcomplicate that equation with lots of detail and complexity that basically creates a fog around the simple premise. Client experience, talent experience creates winning culture and financial success.
And we know how, I guess, popular private equity is now and how much it's talked about. But I imagine maybe it was different when you were back at White & Case and you were building out the practice. I'm kind of curious to know, like, at the time, did you know private equity was going to be such a big revenue generator practice area? Did White & Case know that? And kind of how did what happened reflect your expectations at the time?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, look, at that point, private equity was maturing or had matured. In terms of life before White & Case, I'd also done a similar, practice growth at Linklaters. And then life before Linklaters, I was at Clifford Chance, which was the preeminent private equity practice in the early noughties, at times when Kirkland and Ellis, kind of were not really a force in the London market. And the major competitor to them was Ashurst and Simpson Thatcher. So ultimately, and even before then, when I was at Eversheds, management buyout work was highly lucrative because it's transactional. Clients are buying into a situation to create an investment that they want to grow their investment 3 to 5 times over a 5 to 7 year period to sell. So they're always transacting. And therefore, the mindset of people in those teams is always transacting. So once you get those clients to come in and you run through to the exit, and they become a client of the firm, and then you actually sell that client to another bidder, often you can keep the client if you're well integrated with the management team. But more often than not, you were getting 2 or 3x the transaction flow of established institutional corporate clients. But the skill sets were different. It didn't have the prestige in the 90s that it currently has. And it changed. It used to be management buyouts. Management teams used to choose their investor and negotiate the terms of the investment with the investor. And then there became institutional buyouts where the institutions used to lead the way. And then there became leveraged buyouts for a time. And then it became private equity, kind of round about the time of the global financial crisis. It had probably become private equity. So in my mind, I was never an outlier. I was always working with entrepreneurial people doing entrepreneurial things, in a highly transactional practice. I could always see the value. But as the investment capital grew in the industry and it matured, then more and more people could see the value. But even when I joined Linklaters in 2007, which in hindsight was not the ideal time to try and rebuild a private equity practice. I did 2 partners had left and gone to Kirkland and Ellis. So to join then and look at working with an institutional firm as the only lateral hire at partner level in that corporate practice to build a set of clients that they didn't have, was probably braver than I thought at the time, because they were very much a public company firm, institutional bluebird, market leading public company advisor. And you look at them now and they're very much balanced. And then White & Case, when I joined, didn't really have a private equity practice of any significance in Europe. They weren't actually doing much corporate work, to be fair. So when you look at them now, they're established, they've got a corporate practice and a good private equity practice. And these are engine rooms that firms can build around because they generate revenue from repeat business clients, which allows firms to promote people to partner and beyond based on that revenue and those repeat business clients. So not only are they highly transactional, but right now they're highly sticky for talent because they fulfill that criteria of happy clients, happy talent. And if you can reward talent with promotion and compensation that reflects their workflow, then ultimately you end up with a low churn in your talent base. So they're good for firms as well as being good clients because they allow firms to be able to predict, kind of revenue on a repeat business basis in which to make investment decisions, hire other partners, hire partners in ancillary practice groups, as well as promote partners in a second generation and beyond. So I think private equity has been fantastic for law. And I think it's not just the client revenue that's important, it's the dynamic of change they brought into law firms through the changes that firms had to make when they decided to take a strategic bet on going deep with private equity clients. They've made firms more entrepreneurial. They've made the talent base more energetic. They've created partner pathways that would not have existed in those firms. So they're helping build firms through repeat business. So I think they're, kind of very much now one of the key clients in the industry for big firms, which they weren't in the early 90s.
Perfect. So I want to then move over to Perkins Coie. I'd love to know, what do you want Perkins Coie to be known for in relation to its work?
Well, our mission and purpose, our kind of mission is to build a firm advising founders and investors to build the companies of tomorrow, and advising our institutional tech clients on European issues like we do in the US. Our purpose is to build it in the right way. So we want to accelerate talent. We want to provide great careers for our people and provide great client experiences for our clients. And also, I like it being known for having a strong value code. So the behavior in connection with the executive order has also helped shape the definition of what we're known for in Europe in a different way than it has in the US. So, I like that we stand for something. I like that we're going to build it right. And I like we've got a clear mission. So having that mission and purpose is what we want to be known for. And having the backing of the firm in the US to support us on that journey, is what's really rewarding. And, that's why I'm here.
Great. And it sounds like you're in a somewhat similar position back when you're in White & Case Linklaters, you're building out a practice again. How does that look like now at Perkins Coie, where you're trying to presumably pitch to new clients or bring in new clients? What's that process like for you?
Well, in some ways it's the same. In other ways, it's fundamentally different. It's the same in the sense we're trying to target founders and investors and clients at the cutting edge of what they're doing. In terms of being different, we're a very small firm, whereas Linklaters and, you never would get fired for hiring Linklaters and anything. White & Case was a big firm that needed to rebuild a reputation in certain workflows. So it's a different foundation. In relation to, kind of how we're doing it, I feel more confident here that we can build the best talent experience that I've ever built because we've got the technology to accelerate talent in a way we never had at White & Case nor at Linklaters. The methodology, kind of is the same, but the advancement of technology to improve that execution of that methodology is so different that I'm really confident we'll get a much better acceleration of talent here than anywhere else. And that should lead me to being able to get a better client experience for those clients in the right space. So the challenge is the same. The methodology applied is broadly similar, but, kind of the foundation stones are we're a small firm in the European market with a big parent in the US. And ultimately, we are able to take our experience as a team and apply technology now to accelerate that execution of the methodology. And then we can see what will happen from here. The proof's always in the pudding, but there's certain things that are much better here. There's certain things that create more challenges by being small. You just need to be really good when you're small because there's no other fallback. So we're having to design ways where we can get that message across really simply. But it's exciting, building something's always exciting. Watching people grow is always rewarding. In my mind, it's the best part of the job, creating a talent experience that resonates and accelerates talent. And working with some amazing clients, some innovative clients, is just rejuvenating for me, because just when you think you've seen it all, you realize you've seen nothing. So the ability to relearn working with clients and to reapply experience to accelerate talent creates a rejuvenating experience. So so some challenges, some rewards, but I call it same difference. It's the same outcome you want in a slightly different way.
Great. I have so many questions. Okay, so as a managing partner in the London office, I think it's like you have to set out the vision and you have to motivate the team and you have to get everyone rallying in the same page. Very similar to like starting up a business. I'm curious to know, like, how do you do that? How do you like set this strong vision? How do you bring everyone together? I imagine personally, you probably like it's not always easy. It can be tough, but you have to also manage the like, standing up so the rest of the team are motivated. Yeah, can you share any thoughts or advice on that side?
Well, it isn't like a startup. It is a startup. I mean, we're 9 months in. This time last year, we were still in a Fora office where we had to get there early to get a desk, and there was literally five of us. And then we moved to a permanent office in Fora near the BT Tower. And it was exciting to get our first print and technology installed. And then we moved to 22 Bishopsgate, kind of within 7 months, really, of, getting our license, within 3 and a bit months of starting the business. So we've come a long way in a short period of time. And I think, like all startup founders, sometimes it feels like you're chewing glass. Other times it feels like, you're on top of the world. It's a roller coaster because, the challenge is you kept awake at night trying to work out how to overcome different issues that you're facing. So it's a very fast-paced game of chess in one of the biggest legal markets in the world, where we're trying to compete with firms with a far greater, institutional brand in the European market and a much deeper bench strength of talent that's relatively stable. It's been there a long time. So that challenge, disrupting the market, kind of, and trying to create a powerful brand in a short space of time is a real challenge. And we're trying to do it in a way which is calculated, in the sense we're not trying to hire people and hope the work will come. We're trying to grow the business, embed technology into everything we do, so the client experience and the talent experience is accelerated. In order to do that, we have to kind of rejig our traditional thinking to try and get outcomes we've seen before, but in a different way, so that we can scale the business quickly. And now, we're in a position where I think we can scale it quickly. And like all startups, there's phases. There's a startup phase where you get to critical mass, you get to cash flow neutrality, you get to predictable behaviors in the business, and then you can scale. And the challenge for us is to get from startup into scale up. So we're very much a startup business. We have no differences to a startup business. We have, kind of a great brand, which is, kind of enabling us now. And we have, kind of some dry powder to invest. But, it's not infinite, and we need to make good choices to grow. And I think we're doing that. So, so far in, there's ups and there's downs. There's challenges and there's moments of success. But that's what you're in a startup for. You can't expect a startup to be plain sailing, because it isn't. You're creating things from fresh. And in order to do that, you see the opportunity that once you've set those foundation stones up in the right way, which may be different than others are doing it, you get the agility, you get the, kind of ability to scale quicker to become what you want to be without having to manage an institution to do that. So the difference here is I don't have to convince anyone of the right way, because I'm not dealing with 50 to 100 partners who have an established practice facing a different way, and they can be successful in their own right. Here, I have low change management and high growth potential, but I'm not in an institution with a huge amount of people. I'm in a small business. I need to scale. So some things are easier, some things are harder, but it's a startup, and that's all it is. And now we just need to get to scale up as quickly as possible.
The use of technology is, I think, that's very interesting to me. I think there have been external parties that have come into the law firm space and tried to disrupt it through technology, and some haven't been that successful. The law industry, I think, is also known as being a bit behind when it comes to new adoption of technology. I'd love to know, what does this look like in relation to Perkins Coie? How do you see the benefits of using technology, or if you can share anything in relation to how technology is being used?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Look, if you look at talent experience, when people join a law firm, they've often worked ridiculously hard to get in that desk in the first day. So then what do you do with that talent? I think that firms have a traditional view of the type of work they give talent, how they delegate, how working practices are established. I think a lot of those practices and a lot of the ways that are traditional don't fit the current ability to use technology. So we looked at that and thought, well, actually, do we need junior associates? And we then took a view that actually it may be better if we don't have junior associates because we won't have trained them. We'll have to basically integrate them into the business, and we'll have to train them on the go. And they may have come from another firm where they did this or did that. They've done a rotational 2-year training contract. We have a clear mission and purpose. So if we can hire people to come in and get trained in the business on both what the business professionals do, what the legal professionals do, we can create a very agile culture from the get-go. So we created the LBAs, so our legal business analysts, and we're taking people straight from graduation. We're putting them into the business and we're training them ourselves, and they do law school via an outsourced provider, almost as a night school. They don't go to, for 2 years or a year to BPP or equivalent provider. We don't give them a maintenance grant. They work from when they join. Now that suits us and it suits the talent. We also coach them in a transparent way. We democratize knowledge. So everyone has access to the same training, and it's on demand. It's not on supply. You don't need to come in for coffee and croissants at 7:30 on a Monday morning. We basically do it in bite-sized, video-trained documentation, and we have a gamified content so people can train before they play with clients. Most law firms take talent and put them in a high-pressure situation in front of a client to train them. I actually think that's quite tricky, difficult, on all levels, because if you look at football as a guide, I think Pep Guardiola wouldn't try that at Manchester City. He may have tried it after the January transfer window once, but normally you'd be training for 6 to 8 weeks to get the hang of the team. You would understand the playbook. You'd understand how people want to behave in certain situations. So you'd practice before you play. So we want all our team to train hard and practice before they play in front of clients. I think that's fair on clients, because clients, don't want to be paying money to teach people. They want to be paying money to get the best in class service. So I know there's a conflict in the way law firms provide client service, and that will always be there. But my view is we want to accelerate the talent. So it's always providing value for money. It always knows the playbook. It understands the market, and therefore it can really provide deep and meaningful service to the clients that we want. So we took a step back on that experience, and we've reimagined it at all stages so that we think we can accelerate talent by removing delegation. We can empower and tap that thirst for learning that talent turns up with at their first day in a law firm, and firms can sometimes turn off by telling them this is what it is. It's 12-year path. You can't go past the person 2 years above you. If you don't like the way they delegate, don't complain about it because they're under a lot of pressure. It's like, I think that's bullshit. I think we got a lot of great talent in law firms, and they can go hard. The guy I first started working with in Leeds, he was a partner at 3.5 years. So, traditionally law firms accelerated talent. For economic reasons, they decelerate talent now to create leverage. I think that's a bad deal for talent. It's a great deal for partners in established institutional businesses, but not a great deal if you straight out of a top university carrying 50,000 of student debt because you didn't have a banker, mum and dad to pay you through. So I kind of think we look for talent who can thrive in our environment. So we reimagine the talent experience. The client experience, you can't really reimagine, but you can reshape because clients are buying in a common market. But, if we get the talent right, we can use tech to get the clients to thrive. And at the end of the day, the future of law is really simple. If you remove delegation as the mainstay of how people work together, improve collaboration, and put in agentic AI solutions so that they are tailored to what those people want, everyone should have an agentic AI assistant, and then that person should then be able to collaborate with their agentic AI assistant so they get things done themselves. So there's less delegation, more empowerment. And what that will mean for law firms is you'll get a flatter structure at the top. Instead of having a pyramid, you'll end up with a T shape, where you'll have a lot of people who can do a lot of things in front of clients because the AI solution is empowering them to do that. So that's why I didn't want to start in a pyramid. I wanted to start in a business where I could grow a T. So the talent experience and the client experience, we're trialing different forms of tech, some complex, some simple. But at the end of the day, the ability to transition to a data-powered business model is no different than any other business. And the thing that holds it back is change management. Are people willing to change their behaviors? Can you build a pathway so you can put tech in there? Because you don't want it to be too unstructured in terms of data. You want some clear guidance as to what you're doing. And then do the team see it as empowering? Are you using AI to make yourselves better, or are you training AI to replace you? And I'm firmly in the view that we're trying to use AI to make ourselves better.
Yeah, and I think that's by far the most ambitious vision I've heard for talent, which I think is very exciting. Okay, 2 quick fire questions to end this off. One is, so you're planning to advise founders of, say, unicorn businesses in the future. I imagine many business owners see lawyers as a cost center. It's like a necessary, I have to hire lawyers to, do what I need to do. How do you be a lawyer to founders in a way that they see it as a good investment, that adds value, that, they're very happy with working with a firm like Perkins Coie?
Well, I think first and foremost, it goes back to this client experience. So founders want operational advice. What do I do? Yes or no? The best operational advice is to say, yes, you can, or no, you can't. And then you can back that up with detailed advice. So getting to train people to provide operational advice is how you lock in with founders. Secondly, having a relevant ecosystem. Founders building businesses using data, ideas, like new economy businesses, the companies of tomorrow, they have a need for being networked. So you need to have an ecosystem where you can network those founders to help them. So you need to be in the flow, in the market. And that's no different. We talked about private equity at the outset. Private equity is quite a reactive practice. You have a few clients, they repeat business, you react to what they want to do, you work with them, you understand them, but it's more reactive. Tech advisory is very proactive. The founders are very dynamic. They're ebbing and flowing in the market. They often need introductions. They need guidance. They need differentiation. So they're very much more in need of what I consider to be consigliere advice. So you train people to provide consigliere advice. Like, this is the type of person who's going to do this investment. These are the 3 people who've done it most recently. I know one of them. I can reach out to the other 2 and see if I can get an introduction. Because ultimately you have, with a good brand like Perkins or some of the other brands in the market, you've got pulling power to create that ecosystem. And I think thirdly, being along for the journey. Some of the big criticism of lawyers is they're very transactional. You're my best friend when you pay my charge that rate until I get my bill paid. And then I'll move on to my other best friend and I'll see you in a couple of years when you've got a next transaction. It's less transactional. So you're building a ongoing relationship which supports the consigliere style advice of the senior members of the team with operational advice for all members of the team. So the client gets value for money, the talent feels connected, and ultimately you're providing a collaborative experience for the founder. So it's not one-to-one, it's founder to firm. If you can create that environment, then that's going to be the driver of success, because that's the best client experience. So seeing that and working backwards from that so you can build those building blocks takes me back to your first question. Like, what building blocks are you creating and why are they relevant? Well, they're the same as every other firm, but with a slightly different nuance. So they're relevant for these types of clients in this market. And this market's tough. This market for tech firms is straightforward. We're great at startups. Europe's not great at scale-ups. There's no capital market exits in Europe for the vast majority of successful tech companies, and therefore they'll need to go into a platform in the US or usually IPO in the US if they're big enough. Blending US dollar investors with non-US dollar investors in Europe is a key issue. Same language, different terms, underlying differences from market practices need to be understood. But at the end of the day, you want supportive investors in harmony in your cap table so you can drive your business forward. So coaching that into the team and leading it in the market that's a team effort. And that's why we see this as an exciting time. Are we ahead of the curve or behind it? Well, we're definitely not behind it. I think we're ahead of it. And therefore, the excitement is we get to shape it. But there's some great firms in our space. So we get to see what they do. We can take the bits we like, and then we can shape the bits we don't like. So we're not flying solo, in fog. We can see what's working and not in the market, and we can use technology to track it. And we can be quicker over the ground and empowering young people, because the age of founders in our space is coming down. So the reality is accelerating younger talent so it can be a client lead much sooner is fundamental in our business, because the age profile of our clients is much younger than, say, mature institutional client bases or even private equity bases.
So last question, many people watching they probably will have just applied for the LBA, the vacation scheme, or they may be applying for the next year, the years after. What's one piece of advice you would want to give them about their legal careers or Perkins Coie?
Look, we get so many talented people applying. It's a shame we can't make the scheme bigger, because my gut instinct is these candidates would be the Perkins firm in the next 5 years. So I think understand our business, understand the differences of what we're trying to do compared to other firms you'll be applying to. And then, we're not for everyone, but if you're basically excitable or excited by the mission and the purpose, then get that out. If you, kind of see which clients we act for in the US, see what they do in Europe, and ask questions about that. Amazon is our biggest client. So there's lots of things that people can focus on that are relevant to us, nuanced against other firms that no doubt be applying for. But we are clear mission, clear purpose, clear value-driven business. So if that's for you, then let it be known. And then understand why us versus why someone more mature. Because not everyone wants to work in a startup. People sometimes just want to work in a graduate scheme in a big institution. But make sure if you want to work with us, you want to work in a startup, and then and get that over.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ian. I think I'm very inspired just by listening to that, even though I'm not an applicant anymore. But I'm excited to see the vision play out in practice. And thank you so much for your time.
And so am I excited to see it play out in practice. Remember, as my gran used to say, the proof's always in the pudding.
Yes,
so these are wise words, but hopefully it'll look wiser in 3 years when we're scaling up nicely.
Best of luck. Thanks so much, Ian.